Hi there, Waltineers. I'm Jack, and this is DSNY Newscast. And next month, August 14th to be exact, it's D23 time yet again. And so today, what I want to do is my in-depth predictions video for this year's D23 and discuss all of the rumours and speculation heading into this year's event and talk about what we can likely expect to be announced at this year's D23. And rest assured, I'll be covering all extensively here on the channel as always. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below. Hit the notification bell so you get an update when the news comes out during the D23 weekend. And speaking of that, there are going to be two big news events, and it's going to be centered around the Disney Entertainment Showcase and the Disney Experiences Showcase. And the Entertainment Showcase will take place on Friday, August 14th at 7 PM local time in California, or 10 PM East Coast time for everyone on the East Coast of America. And then for everyone across the pond in the UK, it's going to be early morning on Saturday at 3 AM or early hours of the morning in Europe. The Disney Experiences Showcase will be taking place on Saturday, August 15th at the exact same times again, but just on Saturday instead. And this is going to be the parks focused presentation where we'll get a lot of news and details and announcements for the Disney parks around the world. And in terms of this year's D23, I want to talk about the general kind of expectations and what we should kind of expect the vibe to be for this year's D23. And where I actually want to begin is D23 2022. As you see, that year was disappointing to say the very least. They even had that infamous segment at the end of the presentation in 2022 where they kind of did that kind of weird polling of the audience, the surveying of the audience on stage for blue sky ideas, and got everyone very excited and then didn't announce anything and just kind of walked off stage. And Disney knew, I think, that didn't really land very well. And then going into 2024, Josh D'Amaro, who was the Experiences chairman at the time before he became CEO, spoke a lot about turbocharging the Disney parks and the Disney experiences around the world. And they did do that in 2024. They delivered on that promise in a big way with that showcase, and they had a lot of massive projects announced on stage and a lot of big mic drop moments as well, with celebrities in attendance and stuff like that throughout that presentation. And these mic drop moments were stuff like Villains Land getting announced at long last, or the Walt Disney animatronic, or the Monsters Inc. Door Warehouse roller coaster getting announced. All of those things were things that us Disney fans didn't think would ever get announced, and they were finally being made a reality and confirmed to be happening on stage. And that year was about the headline and then a piece of artwork. Whereas this year at D23 in 2026, what I think we can expect is a fleshing out of all of the details for the various projects that they've now got under construction around the world, as they've got a lot happening in the Disney parks at the moment. So I don't think there'll be a lot of big new land announcements at this one, but I think it's going to be diving into the details and really focusing in on these projects and giving us all of the exact details of what's actually happening with these projects here. It goes beyond blue sky and the guesswork going on. This year, I think when it comes to artwork, it's going to be what you see is actually what you're going to get in terms of these projects. And we'll probably get some first looks, some exclusive glimpses behind the creative process, things like that on these various projects. But I also think that they may have a few projects up their sleeve as well which are unannounced. And the reason for that is because it's taking place in the Honda Center again, which is a big arena and a lot of people in attendance. And if you're just standing on stage and fleshing out all the details, you want some big surprise moments to really bring up the energy level in the arena at the time. And I think they will have a few smaller projects to announce on stage. And I want to get into my predictions for that later on in the video. So there'll be a lot to discuss. And all of the news coming out of D23, I think might even begin to trickle out a night early on the Thursday night as a preview of the Imagineering Pavilion. As looking back at every previous D23, they do tend to have a media preview of the Imagineering Pavilion, because on the Friday morning they want to let the paid attendees come into the pavilion and have a look at it. So I think that it's possible that they may do a Thursday night preview with the media of the Imagineering Pavilion. And this will be a big deal because we're likely to get a lot of the models for the existing projects under construction at the moment. And the first one will probably be Tropical America. It's not the model that you see over in Hollywood Studios on display there. I think they may have a few other models in terms of the exterior facades for the Encanto attraction, maybe the carousel, and the Indiana Jones temple, so therefore people can really see what they're going to be experiencing next year in 2027 when that opens. Piston Peak National Park, that's a big deal within this pavilion, I think, because in June of last year I was part of a virtual meeting with Imagineering as part of the media, and they did show us that they were working on a Piston Peak National Park model. And obviously with it being a year later now, that will likely be finished and hopefully displayed within this Imagineering Pavilion. I think that'll be a big deal for that project, because up until now we've only had the artwork, the cartoonized map of the area, and being able to see a model where what you see is what you're going to get and kind of truly envisioning it, all the attendees seeing that will kind of sell them on the project. So I think that will be a big part of this pavilion. The Lion King is another one which I think we'll probably see show up with the attraction that they're building over in Disneyland Paris, because when I toured Imagineering last year, they showed us a large-scale Lion King model, which they had previously shown us during the annual shareholders meeting. And although at the time when I saw it and I got to take some photos of it, it was far from finished, I think by now it's going to have all its final pieces put in place, and it's the finalized design of what we're going to get with that attraction. So I would expect that to probably show up within this pavilion as well. Monstropolis. Now, although this is a retheme of Muppets Courtyard, and we all know what Muppets Courtyard looks like, last month when I was able to tour the construction site, they showed us some artwork for the buildings. They are really diving into the large-scale retheming of the elements of this area, and I think to have a model that shows that in 3D form would be fantastic as well. In terms of Villains Land, I don't think we're going to see a model within the Imagineering Pavilion, just based on the fact that that project's probably a bit further out, and if we're going to see a model for that, I think that will probably be showcased at D23 in 2028, the finalized model, because that project's probably not going to open, estimate based upon the construction right now, I reckon that will open by 2029. So if they were to showcase a model for that in 2028, it would be another hype moment for that project going into its opening a year later. So I think they'll be holding back on showing us the model at the pavilion for Villains Land, but maybe we'll get some glimpses, who knows. And then also throughout this pavilion there'll probably be ride vehicles showcased for the various attractions as well, because after all, that's what we've seen with previous years of D23. And speaking of that, we've got to talk about the Disney Experiences showcase on the Saturday night. But before we do, I just want to give a quick thanks to the sponsor of today's video, which is Monarch Money. Now, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you might be planning a trip to go to Disney at some point in the next year or so, and with the way the world is right now, with high inflation and the high costs of living in general, sitting down actually trying to figure out a way to save for your next Disney vacation can feel overwhelming. And that's where Monarch Money could really help, as Monarch is a private ad-free personal finance platform that syncs with over 13,000 institutions through a fast and secure setup with all major banks, credit cards and brokerages to give you a full financial picture in one clean and easy to understand dashboard. And because it is ad-free, it means that Monarch sees you as a customer and not the product. So, instead of jumping between 5 different banking apps or staring despairingly at a spreadsheet, you can see all your accounts, spending, recurring bills, and even your net worth and progress on paying off any debt, all in one intuitive experience both on web and mobile. And it's not just about showing you where your money went, but with Monarch's AI-powered insights, it can help you better understand it all and make more informed financial decisions in the future. And oftentimes when it comes to planning a family Disney trip, it can all fall upon one person to manage all the budgeting. But with Monarch's couples view, it means that you're both looking at the exact same financial picture, where you can separate out fixed expenses from flexible spending and set custom categories and rules to keep you all focused on the end goal of actually getting on vacation. And so, check out Monarch Money for yourself today, and if you use my link in the description box below, or scan the QR code on the screen right now, you can get 50% off your first year with code DSNY50. Now, when we're talking about this Experiences Showcase, I think that this one's going to be very much structured obviously around the existing projects that have been announced, and I think that they're going to want to, bring more of the creatives on stage to talk about these various projects and give us a lot of details about what we can expect and a lot of first looks. And I think the big focus to begin with will be Tropical Americas, and that's obviously the Encanto attraction and the Indiana Jones attraction. I think we're going to get the ride system confirmed for the Encanto attraction. We'll probably get new concept art for the various show scenes within that attraction, because we've only got one piece of artwork that gives us an inside look at the Encanto attraction, and it is opening next year. So I think we'll get more in the way of that, and maybe even like a previs animatic video ride through. You know, they've done that previously with Slinky Dog Dash in 2015, I believe, when they showed us that. So possibly they'll do that with Encanto to kind of give us a real idea of what this will be and how the ride system will work for the attraction of the casita moving us throughout the attraction. And then Indiana Jones, I think what we'll get in terms of this project will be a focus on the storyline of the Mayan culture and how that's working within Animal Kingdom and Indiana Jones, and how those two kind of meld together. Because I know a lot of people have questioned Indiana Jones in Animal Kingdom, but I think that they'll want to really dive into the storyline of this attraction to really sell the audience and the Disney Park fans on how this will naturally fit within Animal Kingdom. And I do know that Joe Rohde has been looking at this project and has very high praise for what they're doing with the Mayan culture integration into the Indiana Jones attraction. And if he's got high praise of it and Animal Kingdom is his park, I think Imagineering have cooked up something pretty great for Indiana Jones here. And I also think there'll be a focus on some of the Illusioneering effects that we'll see within this Indiana Jones attraction, because this isn't just a clone of the Indiana Jones attraction over at Disneyland or in Tokyo. Instead, this is its very own bespoke Indiana Jones attraction. And I do know that Imagineering have really been investing in Illusioneering practical effects and trying to build that division within Imagineering. And clearly they are working on some pretty great stuff for, I think, Villains Land and this Indiana Jones attraction as well. And then in terms of giving us the official attraction name or the official opening date, I don't think that's very likely at this year's D23. I think they'll be holding off on that for a later date. Probably the Christmas Parade holiday special that plays on ABC and on Disney Plus as well, as they know there's a lot more eyeballs on that presentation, and all the families are together discussing where they want to go on vacation for the following year, and it's a great time to kind of focus all their minds on Tropical Americas and the latest and greatest thing that's opening at Walt Disney World that year. So I think that that's where they'll probably announce an opening season or an opening, month for Tropical Americas, but it is possible they could announce it this far out. I don't think it's likely, but if they were to announce it, I think it's going to be fall of 2027. Then we've got to move on to Monstropolis over at Hollywood Studios. And I think we'll get an early look at the actual ride system testing, similar to what they did years back with Cosmic Rewind, showing that. So with the ride system testing in its manufacturing facility, I think there'll be something similar for this Monsters Inc. Door Warehouse suspended roller coaster system there, because it's a first of its kind within the Disney parks, and I think they'll want to show it being tested and, kind of hype people up for it. I think we'll get some new details in terms of the interior show elements and show scenes within this attraction. Maybe additional animatics, because we've already seen that pre-vis animatic of the loading area for this Monsters Inc. Door Warehouse roller coaster, and I think it's possible that we'll get more in the way of that. A little bit like I said before with the Slinky Dog Dash pre-vis animatic years ago, maybe we'll get that for this Monsters Inc. attraction as well, to really give people a great understanding of what this will actually be like when you're on that ride. And then also the second attraction within Monstropolis. We still don't know exactly what this attraction is going to be yet. All we know is from the artwork, where Muppet Vision 3D was, the former location of that theatre, on the exterior of that theatre it says it's the Glob Theatre. So we know it's some sort of theatre performance, and it will just be interesting to see if it's going to be a 3D attraction similar to Muppet Vision 3D, and what we're going to see with that attraction when it opens. So we'll likely get that confirmed on stage as a big announcement at D23 this year as well. Then we've got to move into Piston Peak National Park over at Magic Kingdom. And I think we'll get confirmation at long last of the family-friendly flat ride, which is within the area as well, because they've been very elusive on this one. They don't really want to tell us what it is, and I reckon that this is going to be some sort of innovative new flat ride. So it's not just going to be an off-the-shelf kind of whip ride or anything like that, or a spinner. I think it's going to be something that's innovative, but it's still going to be a flat ride, but it's going to be something that we haven't seen before. So think something like Luigi's Rollicking Roadsters, or remember the Luigi's Flying Tires, that kind of thing. it's going to be something new and bespoke to the area that Imagineering have worked on, and that's the reason why they're holding back on showing it at a later stage like this year's D23. And we'll also likely get the details of the Piston Peak rally race attraction as well, whether it's a tracked system or a trackless ride system. There's been a lot of debate around this with this attraction, and I think they'll clarify all of that and show us more of how this attraction is actually going to work within that area. Because again, I think there's been some naysayers towards this project, because obviously Rivers of America meant a lot to a lot of people, and Piston Peak National Park, people weren't sold on it. And I think they're going to need to show more to sell people on what's actually going to be constructed within this area here. And then we come to Villains Land, and this is likely to be the big finale for the presentation, a major highlight of this D23, and it'll probably close out the presentation like it did 2 years ago. And I think we're finally going to get the confirmation of the 2 major attractions that will be within Villains Land. There's been a lot of discussion, speculation swirling around online about what this is going to be. You know, a lot of rumours. There was a rumour that, you know, it could be like an Emperor's New Groove roller coaster. Personally, I don't think that at all is going to happen, because just judging by the blue sky artwork, that does not line up with Emperor's New Groove in any way, and I don't think that they would take that much of a left turn towards something completely different when they showed us the blue sky artwork. I still think it's going to be something Maleficent themed in terms of the roller coaster for Villains Land, and there's been a lot of speculation about what the second major attraction will be, if there is going to be a roller coaster in the land. Is it going to be a boat ride, which is personally what I would like to see happen, because Magic Kingdom could do with that extra capacity, and we know boat rides do offer that? Or is it going to be a simulator, something along the lines of Infinity Defense? They're working on that technology over in California. Could they be bringing that to Villains Land as well? But either way, I think we're going to get a lot of new artwork for this area. I think we'll get artwork that shows us actually what this is going to look like, maybe from a ground view perspective, and it'll be a case of what you see is what you're going to get in terms of Villains Land. So that'll be a big deal at this year's D23. Then we've got other ongoing projects. Lion King over at Disneyland Paris. I think we'll get probably a new piece of artwork, maybe talk of the show scenes, or maybe a glimpse of the animatronics within this attraction. They'll want to highlight this at D23, but I do know that Disneyland Paris also hold their own media events where they like to, you know, have their own hype cycle for the European Disney fans as well. So they'll want to kind of strategically split that up from a marketing perspective there. And then Coco over at Disney California Adventure. I think we'll get new artwork for the interior show scenes of this attraction and project details for that as well, because that's under construction as well at California Adventure, and I think that's probably going to open probably late 2028 if I was to make a prediction right now for an opening date, which is probably a bit foolish this far out when we haven't even seen it go vertical yet. And then we've got Avengers at California Adventure, and I think when it comes to this attraction, it's very likely that we might even get an opening season announced for this, or even an opening date announced for this attraction, because recently it was reported that the Test and Adjust Manager team has been assigned for these Avengers attractions within Avengers Campus here, of Infinity Defense and the Stark Flight Lab. And so if they're assigning the Test and Adjust managers at this stage, you know, the rest of the test and adjustment hasn't actually begun yet, but they are getting ready for it, which, you know, we're in July right now. Could it open by the end of this year, you know, December 2026, to line it up and coincide with Avengers Doomsday coming out? I think it's more likely that it's going to open in 2027, maybe, you know, just ahead of summer of 2027, coming off the back of what is most likely going to be a very successful Avengers Doomsday at the global box office. And they'll probably want to build off that and open this for the summer of 2027 at Disneyland. Then we've got Avatar over at California Adventure, and this is an unusual one because we haven't really heard anything about this since it was announced at D23 in 2024. And we know that they kind of pushed back the closure of Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue. And that is where this attraction is going into that Hollywood backlot area of California Adventure. And the fact that we haven't had any extra details on that yet, I think, based upon the fact that Zootopia 2 did so extremely well at the global box office and has become the highest grossing animated movie of all time, I think it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that they might pivot at this year's D23 and announce Zootopia coming to California Adventure instead in that area. But if they do go with Avatar, and they are progressing in that direction, then we should be getting a lot more in the way of details of this attraction. Because we've already got like 3 or 4 pieces of concept art for this area. And then tying up the Experiences Showcase, I think there'll be talk about an additional cruise line ship and Shanghai Disneyland over there with the Spider-Man roller coaster, and the Spider-Man attraction in Hong Kong Disneyland will probably also get spoken about as well. Could they talk about Tokyo? It's possible, but the Oriental Land Company typically like to keep their news separate, but they might mention it on stage and talk about the Space Mountain revamp over there, but it probably won't be a very big segment if they do talk about that, because like I said, Oriental Land Company, that is their domain to market their own attractions. And then we come to the rumoured announcements for this year's D23, and I've got 3 in particular which I want to talk about. So number 1 is Journey into Imagination with Figment. I think that this is going to be the big new announcement at this year's D23, and they've teased this for many, many years now. We've seen Figment, walking into Imagineering headquarters in a social media video. We've seen the marketability and the revenue that Figment can pull in for Epcot in terms of popcorn buckets and merchandise in general for the different festivals. And I think that Disney are finally ready, I think, to make this announcement. And when they do make this announcement, I think this will get a fantastic reaction in the arena. And I think that they know that this will be a big moment for the Disney diehard fans in attendance. And if they announce something like the return of Dreamfinder and a lot of classic Epcot elements to a revamp of Journey into Imagination with Figment, then that will be a big deal for a lot of Disney fans. And I do think that's very possible, because if you look at Test Track and the retheme they've done there, that's been met by very positive reactions from a lot of Epcot fans there. And I think that they'll do the same with this Journey into Imagination revamp if it does get announced, with a lot of the old Epcot legacy elements going into this attraction, having that same kind of vibe and feel to the attraction there. So I think that that is going to be the big surprise announcement. That's my first prediction here. But my second one is also to do with Epcot, because they are going to want to put more focus on Epcot, because you've got Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom getting so much love at the moment in terms of the new projects, and I do think they'll want a couple of new projects at Epcot as well. And I think the second prediction I've got here is to do with the Wonders of Life Pavilion. Now, back in 2019, this was announced to be being converted into what was known as the Play Pavilion at the time, and then COVID came along in 2020 and the pandemic shut down and all that sort of stuff, and these plans were indefinitely postponed and essentially scrapped. And recently we've seen that the flag for the Play Pavilion has been removed from the entrance plaza outside the front of Spaceship Earth, and I think that they will be wanting to announce something new going into the Wonders of Life Pavilion here. And this is based off of the fact that they've invested a lot of money in restoring that dome to Wonders of Life, and it's just sat there not being used to generate revenue or extra capacity for the park. So I think they'll want to put something in the Wonders of Life Pavilion, and the thing that I would want to see them put in Wonders of Life would be Inside Out. I think that would be a great IP to put into the Wonders of Life Pavilion, maybe even couple in Baymax into that same pavilion as well. You can talk about physical health and mental health within the same pavilion. And I know that doesn't sound like a particularly, entertaining theme park topic, but Epcot is about edutainment after all, and if you use the Inside Out characters to discuss good mental health but in a funny way, that would be appealing. And I think Baymax would also be a great way to talk about good physical health, and then it also brings back to the core of what Wonders of Life was meant to be about, which was the health pavilion within Epcot. So again, I think that would be very popular if they did that. And then the last one in terms of Epcot is Spaceship Earth. This was another project that was announced in 2019 that was indefinitely postponed during the pandemic, and I think that this is in need of a refurbishment. Spaceship Earth, you've been on it recently, it does need a refurbishment, but it's a very complicated project to carry out because of the way that the ride system is chain linked together, and it's in the centre of the park. It's very hard to take those ride vehicles out of the park to then do the thematic changes that they want to do to the inside of the building, maybe even put in a new track for Spaceship Earth as well. So we'll see what happens with this one, but I think that if it's not this year that Spaceship Earth gets announced, I think it's going to have to be 2028. And when it does get announced, it's going to go down for 2 or 3 years of a revamp of that attraction. So maybe they'll want to have, you know, the new Journey into Imagination open and Wonders of Life open if they do announce those 2 projects before they then take the capacity out of Epcot with Spaceship Earth's revamp. So possible, but I would say it's less likely. I think it's more likely we're going to get Journey into Imagination and Wonders of Life announced at this year's D23. And then we got to move over to Animal Kingdom, as there's another big piece of real estate within that park that's just sat there unused for many, many years now, and that's obviously the Rivers of Light Theatre, as that has just sat empty, and it's not a very good use of space. And with Encanto and Indiana Jones and Tropical America's opening in 2027, Animal Kingdom's going to need all the capacity it can get, and with a new nighttime or even daytime show, it would help absorb some of those crowds and additional capacity for the parks, and help the park extend its hours into the evening as well. So therefore, if you've got to think about it from a business standpoint, so Disney can keep Encanto and Indiana Jones open longer into the evening hours and sell more lightning lanes. You know, it's, after all, that's what it's about. It's a business, and to have a nighttime offering as well, that would be a big deal. I don't know if they would lean into doing a nighttime offering, considering that, you know, the animals in Animal Kingdom. They did do it with Rivers of Light, but possibly could this be another daytime show? It could be that they do a daytime show and a nighttime show within the same theatre. And we've seen them test drones at Walt Disney World with Dreams That Soar, and that was a very successful test of that technology at Disney Springs, and it did amazing attendance for Disney Springs during 2024. So I think that you might see drones deployed within Animal Kingdom because they're not particularly noisy, and if you fly them fairly low to the water, it shouldn't create too much light pollution for the animals. And then also, Imagineering's R&D segment have also shown that they've been working on some aquatic robots as well in the recent years. And one of them looks very much like it's the Grammatala manta ray from Moana, which kind of glides across the top of the water. And could it also be that they're working on some sort of way to bring the water creatures from Avatar Way of Water to life within the Disney parks as well within a show? And I think that could also be a possibility for a daytime or nighttime show at Animal Kingdom. I mean, I want to swing back around to Magic Kingdom here, because recently we've found out a lot more details about Carousel of Progress, and I think we're going to get more in the way of that re-theme happening at D23 this year. I think it's possible that we might even get a glimpse at the Walt Disney animatronic for this attraction and find out more details about the different show scenes and things like that for that. But this is very much kind of a soft revamp of Tomorrowland in recent years at the Magic Kingdom. And the one thing that really does need to be revamped within Tomorrowland now is Space Mountain. And following the new track installation for Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain is, after all, older than Big Thunder Mountain. That opened in 1980. Space Mountain opened in 1975. And although they made some modifications and replaced part of the track within Space Mountain around 15 years ago, it still does need a retrack. It's a bumpy ride at the moment, and it could be a lot smoother. And if they put in a new track, maybe they could lower the height requirement to 38 inches like Big Thunder Mountain and have more of a family ride altogether. So I think Space Mountain will be another project which they could announce this year at D23 as well. And also within Magic Kingdom, I've said this for many, many years now, I will put it out there again. This is kind of my prediction, which I'll just pull it out and just say, this is another year I'm going to say it. Haunted Mansion Restaurant or Haunted Mansion Parlour at the Magic Kingdom. After the success of Beacon Bell last year, I think Haunted Mansion Parlour, being very successful on now 2 cruise ships, the Treasure and the Destiny, I think that would make perfect sense to put it in the Magic Kingdom, have it be a larger scale Haunted Mansion Parlour or restaurant, and you can make a lot of money from something like that. And with all the work they're doing now within Rivers of America for Piston Peak National Park and Villains Land, that whole area is a construction zone anyway. You could easily build something to the side of Haunted Mansion, and there is a spot to the side of Haunted Mansion that has been land cleared, but we'll see what happens with that. There's a building close by in the permits, but that could be alluding to something else altogether. So we'll see what happens, but I would love them to announce a Haunted Mansion restaurant or bar within the Magic Kingdom at this year's D23. Then the last thing I want to talk about here are longer term speculative projects. Disneyland Third Gate as part of Disneyland Forward, Disneyland Abu Dhabi, and then Shanghai Disneyland Second Park. Now, with Disneyland's Third Gate, the third theme park that will probably happen within the next 10 years as part of Disneyland Forward. I don't think that's going to get announced this year at D23. I think that'll be a 2030 announcement, because it seems like they're focusing very much on Walt Disney World this decade up until 2029, and then in 2030 it looks like that's when they're going to shift focus and probably look to expand Disneyland Resort in a massive way, because they need to get the infrastructure right before they start to construct any sort of third park at a Disneyland Resort. And I think where it's going to probably go eventually will be the Toy Story parking lot area. It's a big piece of land, and originally within the Disneyland Forward proposal it looked like it was going to be some sort of Disney Springs downtown Disney district. It's the size of the property itself and the shape of it is perfect for a third theme park to go in that spot, and I think they will do that eventually. Then we've got Disneyland Abu Dhabi, and this was announced in May of 2025, and this year has seen an active war go on fairly close by to where this would be located, and a lot of conflict going on in that area. So it's a much more difficult one for Disney to talk about right now, but they probably have the plans readying for this project to be announced in a big way. But considering that Imagineering have been contracted as a creative agency to basically design this theme park, I think that this isn't an announcement that they'll talk about at D23 in a big way. They'll probably want to save that for the Mill Group, who are actually funding this project. It'll be up to them to how they want to announce this project and show more of the details for this project and where they want to do that. It's possible that they might make a more of a regional play and do IAPA in Asia and talk about more there, or it's possible they might hold their own standalone press conference for this new Disney park. I don't think we're going to get much this year at D23. Then we've got Shanghai Disneyland's second park. Now, this is kind of worst kept secret at the moment surrounding Shanghai. There's a big piece of property right to the side of Shanghai Disneyland that could easily take a second park, and with the 2 new hotels that they're constructing, they're building out the capacity for a second park there. And I was expecting this to get announced for the anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of Shanghai Disneyland on June 16th, and it didn't get announced. And so personally, I think this is more likely to get announced at D23, considering it didn't get announced during the anniversary celebrations. But again, it's majority funded by the Chinese government, so it's kind of up to them when they want to make the announcement. They've got control over the announcement here in many ways. And when it came to Zootopia being announced, it was just announced out of the blue back in, I think, 2019. So in terms of Shanghai Disneyland, it's possible they make that a big announcement on stage, but I'm not saying that's likely here. Then the last one is Disneyland Paris and the third land for the Adventure World, Adventure Lake area. This is obviously post Lion King attraction opening. They'll probably have a third land around that lake to the side of Frozen. And I potentially think this could be either Moana themed or Avatar themed. Now, there was a official Disney image of the barges for the actual lake show, and on one of them it said Na'vi on one side, and then the other ones it alluded to Frozen and Lion King. And I reckon they did have plans to maybe do Avatar within that area, but considering the fact that Moana is so successful, I would say that that's also another property which could easily go into that third land option around that lake, and it's another water-based property and it could work really well around that lake. But I don't think that'll be announced yet. I think this is something which we'll be looking at for 2028, because after all, we've got Universal UK that's going to be opening in 2031 supposedly, and that's going to be a lot of competition for Disneyland Paris, and they will want to keep the pressure on going up against the strong competition of Universal UK. And so announcing something like Moana going around the lake area or an Avatar land, it would be a big boost to the resort, and they could have that announced in 2028 and constructed and opened by 2031 to compete with Universal UK, which is opening in that same year. So that's something to think about there. This has been a very long video, and I hope you've enjoyed the deep dive predictions and speculation around this year's D23. We haven't got long now to wait until we see if these predictions are correct or not. It's roughly a month away now, and depending on when you're seeing this, it could be even sooner. So with that being said for today, it's over to you, the Waltineers, as I would like to know, What are your predictions for this year's D23 taking place in August in terms of the big announcements and also the fleshed out details for the existing projects as well? I'd love to hear all your predictions and your insight and your analysis of what you think that Disney will do this year at D23, and also throw in some movie predictions in there as well. And speaking of that, be sure to subscribe down below, check out the rest of the videos on this channel and hit the notification bell so therefore you get all of the details and news updates coming out of D23 in August. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel. It's greatly appreciated. And also a massive shout out to the official Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, along with Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, and Tim and Stephen Parsons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.